reach the final stay of this 3-night trip that I went on, and we left Harlech Sands. And the interesting thing here was I had an hour between the time I had to check out of Harlech Sands and the time I could check in at the next site. So I used that to go on a little detour to Black Rock. Firstly, this is somewhere I used to go quite a bit as a child, so it was always quite nice to go back there. But secondly, it's one of the only places in the area where you can do this. You can just drive straight onto the beach and park right up there. So that's what I did. I stayed here for about an hour, got my camping chair out, sat on the beach next to the van, and just read a book. Then it was time to go to our final campsite. Here we are in Harlech, and more specifically, the Minadon campsite. Now, I have to say, out of all the campsites I've been to on this trip, this one is easily the best. But also at the exact same time, it's probably the biggest and owned by the biggest company. This is a mix of static caravans and 100 spaces for touring caravans or motorhomes and campervans. There are quite a few people here as well, which was a surprise. But yeah, a very professional site. The toilet and shower facilities here were fantastically done. I even broke my rule of not filming in toilets because I was so impressed by these toilets compared to what I'd had over the previous couple nights. And that's not to put down the other sites, it's just that this was a far more professionally ran site. But as always, once I was all set up, it was time to go and have a little wander round. Now, in my previous video, I spoke about how the Harlech Sand site, my review of it may have been different if I'd come at a different time of year, i.e. the summer. And while I don't think the site itself would be any different between when I went in March compared to how it might be in, say, August, I think the town of Harlech itself would be very different. Because I had a rather difficult time just trying to buy food in Harlech. Firstly, I went to this restaurant called The Place, which I'd seen online as just having these beautiful views, and people say that the food was absolutely fantastic. I turned up to find out that they'd stopped serving food about 10 minutes before I'd arrived. I turned up around about 2:30 in the afternoon. I still stuck around and had a drink there, just because I thought the views were fantastic, and it was just nice to sit out there for a little bit. After that, I just carried on walking through the town, and I did find an ice cream shop that was open and was very nice. Had some good ice cream there by the side of Harlech Castle, which you cannot miss if you're in Harlech. Everywhere seems to have a great view of that castle. And I remembered when I had checked in at the campsite, I was told there was a pub at the end of the road. It was called the Queen's Hotel, and according to the big sign on the side of the building, it was opening at 5 o'clock on the Sunday, which I thought was rather strange, just firstly because it was the Carabao Cup final, and you'd think a pub would want to open and show a cup final, get some people in and make some money, but it says it opened at 5 o'clock, so I waited around, and then at 5 o'clock, I walked towards the pub, and strangely found the owner in the back garden, who told me that they weren't opening at all because they had no staff. I then asked him if he could recommend anywhere for me to go within the town to have some food, and he told me that there would be absolutely nowhere that was open for food, which I just thought was a little bit odd. And I think this is a seasonal thing. If you come in August, maybe all these places are open and very welcoming, but everywhere I went, with the exception of the ice cream shop, the people who ran the place looked at me like I had 3 heads and were just completely shocked that someone was in their establishment in March, which was kind of, I don't know, maybe that's normal, I don't know. Either way, I didn't have any dinner. Instead, I went to a little corner shop, which is so odd because when everywhere else is closing and stopping serving food at 2:15 in the afternoon, this little corner shop is open till 10 o'clock in the evening and was constantly busy. I went there, I got a sausage roll and a bottle of Fanta, and I walked to the beach and I watched the sunset. The next morning when I woke up, I had a bit more of an explore of the site itself, and I just found some even more incredible stuff. So, as I said, the toilet facilities and stuff were really good, but also at the very back of the site there was a football pitch and a park for children, but also a park for dogs, which was just, I've never seen something like that before. It was absolutely insane. But there you go, if you got dogs, you can have the park for dogs, I guess. But overall, yeah, this is a great site, and I think if you came in the summer, maybe the restaurants and stuff in the town would be open a bit later and you could actually have some food there as well. But I thought, I'm not going to take any chances when it comes to breakfast in Harlech, and I decided to just leave and go somewhere else. In fact, I went to Lakeside Cafe in Blaenau Ffestiniog, which was about a half an hour drive, but definitely worth it because it had a really beautiful view of what isn't a lake, technically a reservoir, but I'll let that slide. Great view of the reservoir as you're sitting there eating your breakfast, and the breakfast was absolutely delicious. They did fried bread. Love a bit of fried bread. Love it. But with that was the 3-night trip done, and I got back in the van and headed on home. And I have to say, I think the trip overall was a success. I had a really nice time, saw many beautiful beaches, got quite a few steps in the process as well. But yeah, just really good. If the first trip I had last month was all about just testing the van and making sure I had everything and making sure everything was working fine, this was just about kind of what is it like to go from site to site to site. And I have to say, I really enjoyed it. The downside of it, of course, is that if you're only in one place for one day, and not even that full day, you don't necessarily get to see everything. But I just loved the driving as well as staying in these sites. I think next time I go, wherever that may be, because as of right now I have nothing planned, maybe I will just go somewhere and stay for a few nights. Like when I bought the van, it came with an awning. That awning I have not even opened or looked at since I got the van. So maybe next time I'll find somewhere and I'll go, right, I'll stay here for a week and we can put up the awning and see what that's like and see how it differs from changing in a site every night and see what a specific area has to offer over the course of a week. I don't know. There is no plan with this. We're just kind of going with the flow, seeing what's fun and seeing what happens. So I hope you've enjoyed these videos of my 3 nights away from Aberdaron to Pwllheli to Harlech to finishing off in Blaen y Festiniog for some breakfast. I hope you've enjoyed. We shall be back later on in the year. I have no idea when. Until then though, have a good one. I shall see you later. Goodbye.